have it. The question is... whip to move.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I also congratulate you on your appointment, and it's a pleasure to be speaking in this debate tonight with yourself in the chair. I welcome the opportunity to raise the issue that is in front of us. I've heard many honourable members over the last couple of days asking exactly what is Butec. Madam Deputy Speaker, Butec is the British Underwater Test and Evaluation Centre operated by Kinetic on behalf of the Ministry of Defence. Butec operates facilities at Kyle of Lacalch, on the island of Rona and at Applecross, with testing taking place off Rona and in the inner sound between the island of Raasay and the mainland at Applecross. The area of Rona will from time to time be closed to local fishing interests, with an area of Raasay being permanently closed, the so-called no-take zone. When there is no activity off Rona, creels can be placed there, whilst the fishermen are compensated when the creels have to be moved and the area closed. On the 23rd of February this year, the then Under-Secretary of State for Defence informed this House that there was to be a £22 million investment at Kinetic. We do not know the details of this investment, but amongst other things, the Rona facility will be closed and there will be a net loss of jobs. Perhaps, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister could detail what the planned investment will actually result in as far as jobs are concerned. There has been considerable local coverage of the plans, which included publication of a map, which I have with me, which shows on at least one of the plans a doubling of the exclusion zone for fishing right up to the shoreline at Applecross. Madam Deputy Speaker, to a large extent, the interests of Butec and the local fishing community coexist, or can be more accurately said to have coexisted up until this proposal was announced. There are legitimate concerns that the proposed expansion of Butec offers a real threat to the local fishing industry. My first question would be, why could we not have the same circumstances that exist off Rona, where fishing is allowed when there is no activity? The same should apply to any extended area. Madam Deputy Speaker, I also want to ask, why is this being proposed now? Is it, for example, to do with the existing Trident fleet, or is it, as some expect, to do with a future replacement of the Trident fleet, something that we on these benches here would resolutely oppose? Very little has been stated publicly since February. We were promised a public consultation, which was initially suggested for April, conveniently moved till after the general election, put off till June, and I now understand that this has been put back to late summer. This, quite simply, is not good enough, particularly in the light of what is happening at Applecross. People in my constituency deserve to know what is going on and the nature of the threat to employment that there is in Ross, Skye and Lochaber. One of our local papers, the West Highland Free Press, on the 29th of May, stated that an MOD spokesman said that no work had started on the expansion. However, the Applecross Life blog of the 6th of June tells a different story, and I quote, "The investment on the shore side of the range expansion has already begun, which leads me to think that the upcoming consultation may be no more than a paper exercise. No one is going to tell me that everything is not in place and that it is not going to stop if a few fishermen complain their livelihoods are going to be adversely affected." There is also photographic evidence on the blog of the ongoing work. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, my questions would be as follows. When will the consultation exercise start? Why has the consultation process not started? And who is responsible for commencing the construction activity? When the consultation starts, why should we believe that this is meaningful if the construction work is already underway? Why is there a proposal to take the exclusion zone right up to the shoreline? Why are the expansion plans necessary? Madam Deputy Speaker, can I also ask who will be responsible for the consultation exercise? Who will conduct the consultation and who will they consult with? Why is this important? Let me state that I welcome the jobs that are associated with the range. However, we understand that from what has been in the press, that with the ending of the RONA capabilities, there will actually be a net reduction in jobs. I want to speak up for the workforce at Kinetic, and in doing so, I want to ask that the company restore union recognition for the workforce and allow the workforce to be properly represented on this and on other matters. I want to turn to the implications for the fishing industry. Particularly active in this area are the North West Fishermen's Association. The association was formed to promote the idea of responsible fishing within the inner sound between Raasay and the Scottish mainland, with the intention of maintaining the viability of not only the available stocks of fish and shellfish, but also the viability of the diverse fishing communities situated in the fringes of the area. They fully understand the role played by the fishing industry in keeping their communities alive. The area has a reputation for producing high-quality prawns, which are eagerly sought by shellfish buyers for the export markets in mainland Europe. The membership of the association currently numbers some 70 vessels and 120 owners and crewmen. The reports of an expansion of the Butec range caused a considerable disquiet among the membership, and a number of meetings have been held to discuss the issue. The current situation, where fishing activity has been banned in a swathe of the inner sound, was accepted by the association, but with some reservations. The area currently used by Kinetic consists mainly of deep water, 100 fathoms or 600 feet, where the Butec activities are carried out. Over the years, Madam Deputy Speaker, the fishermen have learned to operate out with this area, rotate their activities to suit the available stocks in each location, to maintain and preserve their integrity, while allowing the fishermen to make a living and retain the viability of the communities they live in. The fishing industry supports not only the livelihood of the 120 people directly employed within it, but also a large, some would say equal number of other jobs associated with it. That is some 240 families in the area whose main wage earner is dependent on this industry. As I've stated, 70 boats will be affected by the proposals, with a larger knock-on effect across many communities. Madam Deputy Speaker, what sustainability studies have been taken in relation to this? The current system of rotating fishing activities to suit the available stocks would be severely hampered should any further areas be declared no fishing zones. It is simple mathematics. 70 vessels concentrated into a much smaller area would catch the available stocks faster. This would lead to overfishing of the area and removal of too many shellfish to allow natural regeneration of the stock. The result would be a collapse of those stocks and the end of the local industry. There is the issue of the threat to employment in the fishing industry and at Butec. The current proposals will see 13 jobs at the Rona listening station at the north end of Raasay being surplus to requirements. These jobs do not appear to be replaced by civilian staff at the new facility being mooted under the extension scheme. If the extension is allowed, then it is a certainty that these 13 jobs will be lost. The loss of fishing grounds will no doubt force a number of fishermen to leave the industry at the very least. This will have a knock-on effect in the local communities, and the whole downward spiral of depopulation will be exacerbated, leading to further local decline. These communities, Madam Deputy Speaker, operate within a finely tuned mechanism of codependence. Loss of a part of one commercial area impacts upon all the others. The local economies are intertwined. The long-term viability of the area depends upon this relationship. If one local aspect of the local economy declines, the loss of revenue declines elsewhere. The communities are indeed living on the edge. The loss of fishing industry jobs will mean families without any secure full-time employment will be forced to leave. The ripples of that departure will resonate throughout the entire community, affecting other local businesses, schools and a myriad of other institutions. It is not known how many civilians are directly dependent on the Butec facility. That is information that is apparently classified, but it can be safely assumed that the number does not come close to the numbers directly or indirectly connected with the local fishing industry. The range extension could see the local area losing considerable full-time, year-round jobs that will devastate the area and lead to irreversible decline. This proposal comes at the same time as further revelations concerning the safety aspect of the UK nuclear fleet and the Trident programme. When these new safety allegations are added to the well-documented grounding of a nuclear-powered submarine in the local area in recent years, and the feeling of general disquiet concerning the possibility of another accident must be considered. It will only take one mistake to devastate the entire local area. Madam Deputy Speaker, questions are rightly being asked as to why the new area is being considered for the Butec programme. The waters contained within the new area are relatively shallow when compared to the current restricted zone. It is one thing to have nuclear-powered submarines operating in depths of 100 fathoms. It is an entirely different matter having these same vessels operating in much, much shallower waters. In finishing, and before I hand on to my colleague, the Honourable Member for Argyll, let me reflect on the Applecross Peninsula. For those that know the history of this area, there used to be crofting communities right up the peninsula. They were hampered by having very poor communications with the outside world, and they fought for decades to have their only means of access, a simple trap, upgraded to a road. One by one, these crofting townships were emptied of their people as they sought a better life elsewhere, frustrated by the lack of support they were given by government. By the 1960s, they were gone. What happened? The MOD came into the peninsula and a road was built. A road that was too late to save the communities in Applecross that had existed there for hundreds of years. Madam Deputy Speaker, one way or another, people were cleared from Applecross, cleared from the land. I don't wish to see our people today cleared from the fishing grounds. History must not be repeated. I urge the Minister to engage in early consultation, but crucially to respect that we must respect the interests of the local fishing community as well as the interests of the MOD and Butec. Thank you very much.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and may I join with everyone else this afternoon in congratulating you on your appointment. And I am very grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Ross, Skye and Lochaber, for allowing me to take up part of his time. Because in doing so, he recognises that this is an important issue, not just for Ross, Skye and Lochaber, but also for wider Scotland. And I think it goes to the heart of the question of the relationship between the Ministry of Defence and local communities, particularly Scotland's rural communities. And as my honourable friend stated, there is no doubt that work has already started on the Butec range. Yet as recently as May, the West Highland Free Press said that the official MOD position was that no work had started in the Butec extension. But the evidence is plain to see, and anyone passing Sands Beach and looking down can see that there are major and extensive digging and trenching works already taking place. So why, if there are no major construction works taking place, are Applecross guest houses full of construction workers who are booked up sometimes for 4 months in advance? And I think that gets to the crux of this entire matter, because it's about engagement and respect between the Ministry of Defence and local communities. So could the Minister please inform us this evening what level of consultation has been entered into by the MOD with the local population about the extension to the range and the serious effects that this will have on fishermen and local associated businesses? As my honourable friend said, as I understand it, a public consultation was due to start in April, but it didn't. Then it was due to happen in June. It hasn't. And now there is a vague promise that sometime before the end of the summer, a consultation will take place. So what is the truth? When will this public consultation take place? Indeed, will this consultation ever take place? Because we are now in a situation where the first part of this extension will be completed before any consultation has taken place with the local community. So can the Minister this evening confirm that there will be a consultation process, and can he inform the House when that will be? So in accepting that the construction work is well underway without any public consultation, could he tell the House what procedures do the Ministry of Defence believe they have to follow in order to proceed with the major part of this construction work? And I ask because I am unaware of there being any planning application having been made or an environmental impact assessment having been carried out. As I understand it, when the Ministry of Defence sought to extend the buildings at Faz Lane, they used the conventional planning process. Could I ask, is the conventional planning process their intention to use in order to extend the work at Butec? Could he tell me, has an application been made under the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act of 1997, or indeed does it even require such planning permission? And if it doesn't, what mechanisms are being put in place to facilitate scrutiny and consideration by the public, by the local authority and by the Scottish Government? My fear is that this development will be buried deep within the confines of the general permitted development of an unspecified nature, or that the Secretary of State will use the powers granted to him under the antiquated and anachronistic Military Land Act of 1892 and its associated bylaws in order to avoid any public scrutiny or consultation. Madam Deputy Speaker, once again, unfortunately, the MOD stands accused of a lack of public engagement, secrecy and obfuscation. And I urge the Minister not to hide behind the Military Land Act and to ensure that public consultation and transparency are the hallmark going forward. We are forced to conclude again that the Ministry of Defence is spending hundreds of millions of pounds of the public's money and yet are unwilling to be held up to public scrutiny. Madam Deputy Speaker, we suspect very, very strongly that the reason this whole process is shrouded in such secrecy is because the Ministry of Defence are spending this money by stealth, extending the Butec range in preparation for the arrival of Trident. And how can the Minister explain that when this place has yet to debate, let alone agree, the renewal of Trident? Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, when will the Ministry consult with the people whose lives are going to be affected by this extension? What safeguards are being undertaken in order to prevent any disturbance to the local environment, both to the public and the marine life, due to the extension of the range? And when will the MOD come clean with the people of Applecross and wider Scotland as to what is actually happening at Butec and admit that this is further below-the-line spending based on Trident renewal before this House has debated or agreed to such an undertaking?
Minister Philip Dunne.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, could I add my voice of congratulations to the others who've congratulated you this evening. This is the first time I've had the opportunity to serve under your chairmanship. We served together when we first arrived in Parliament in 2005 on the Work and Pension Select Committee, and I have very fond memories of the agreement that we reached on many matters despite being on opposite sides of the chamber, so this is a great pleasure. And I should add my congratulations also to the Honourable Member for Ross, Skye and Lochaber, not only for securing this important debate for his constituents, but for his presence in the chamber here tonight, having won his election. I have listened carefully to what the Honourable Member has said, and I will seek to address in my remarks the points that he's raised, indeed also the questions from the Honourable Member for Argyll and Bute, who had alerted me to the fact that he was going to be commenting as well in this debate, for which I'm grateful. But before I do so, I think it would be helpful for the House to explain our plans for the British Underwater Test and Evaluation Centre, as he has explained, widely known as Butec, and other associated facilities. Butec is currently located on two sites in the inner Raasay Sound, a control centre on the Applecross Peninsula, and the site support base at Kyle of Lochaber. Together with a third site, the underwater acoustic signature range operated from the island of Rona. These are collectively known as the Raasay Ranges. All three facilities are operated on behalf of the Ministry of Defence by Kinetic under the terms of a long-term partnering agreement. The LTPA is a 25-year contract, effective from 2003, worth around £5.6 billion over the life of the contract, for the delivery of test, evaluation and specialised training support services. This partnering arrangement delivers an efficient and affordable service that provides access to Kinetic's test and evaluation capabilities and expertise while sustaining investment in new technology and facilities. And I'd like to make it absolutely clear that there remains an enduring defence requirement for the capabilities provided by the RASAE ranges. Important work that could not easily be undertaken elsewhere is carried out there to support UK defence. This includes the measurement of acoustic, electromagnetic and radar signatures of naval platforms and testing of some maritime conventional weapons systems. As with all government departments, the Ministry of Defence must continually strive to deliver capability efficiently. And have been proud, Madam Deputy Speaker, to have been part of the team that is helping to deliver over £5 billion of cost savings since 2010. All areas of defence are regularly examined to ensure that we can deliver our required capabilities at best value to the taxpayer. As part of our work on potential cost reductions, Kinetic developed a proposal at the request of the Department to optimise and sustain the RASAE ranges. This proposal would see the closure of the Rona facility and the relocation of in-water acoustic measuring equipment to the Butec water space, as well as technical enhancements at the Applecross and Kyle of Lochaber sites. This will result in a significant modernisation of the range architecture. These enhancements would mean long-term investment of approximately £22 million in the Honourable Member's constituency. And this is, although much of it will be underwater, this is expected to deliver some £1 million annual operating cost savings until 2028, when the current agreement with Kinetic expires. So as part of this reorganisation, up to 13 posts currently based at the remote Rona facility will be lost. These posts are manned by personnel who operate in a similar way to those who work on offshore oil rigs. In other words, they are not locally housed individuals. They often come from the central belt in Scotland and therefore have no immediate impact on the local economy because they don't have the opportunity to spend their wages locally, because there are no facilities other than their own facility and I think a local household living on the Rona Island. And it is hoped that as many of these reductions as possible would be achieved through voluntary means. So it's important to set in context that the proposed arrangements will actually, aside from those job reductions, will be very good news for the remaining employees of Kinetic, around 80 of whom work at Applecross and the Kyle of Lochaber. In a second, and it's my understanding that the Kinetic employment is the second largest employer after the local authority in that area. So it's a very significant employer in the Honourable Gentleman's constituency.
Thank you for allowing my intervention. Can I just clarify, you said that this would lead to £1 million of savings for the Ministry of Defence, but the knock-on effect to the local economy would be such that the fishing boats would be cleared out of the new extended range and therefore would have a devastating effect on the local economy while saving the Ministry of Defence £1 million per annum.
I'll come on to the Honourable Gentleman's comments about the impact on the fishing industry, because that's the thrust of the argument of the benches opposite. And I think, in short, this is a vision which is not shared by the Ministry of Defence, and I'll come on to explain why. We believe that what this investment will do will be to sustain the activity in Applecross and Lochaber and in the Inner Sound, which will have an enduring future to maintain economic prosperity in the area. Relocating the in-water acoustic measurement equipment away from Rona will mean extending the current Ministry of Defence bylaws for the Butec protected water space by some 28 square kilometres. The current bylaw covers 82 square kilometres, which is presently divided into two areas. The first is an outer area of approximately 56 square kilometres, which prohibits the fishing by any method involving the use of a net or dredge. There is also an inner area of around 26 square kilometres within which all fishing, whether by line, net, trawl or creel, as well as the anchoring of vessels, dredging and dumping of rubbish are prohibited. Under the proposed changes for the Butec water space, there would be a single water space provided for all range activities, covering an area of approximately 110 square kilometres. So this relatively modest increase in water area would be also offset by removing fishing restrictions currently in place in the area of water around the island of Rona. And let me assure the Honourable Gentleman that the Ministry of Defence takes very seriously its obligations to ensure the continued and sustainable use of waters that are used for defence purposes by other users. So we already work closely with the Department for the Environment, Fisheries and Rural Affairs and with Marine Scotland to establish a sound informal consultation process in respect of the National Marine Plan development. As part of the work to implement Kinetic's proposal for Butec, it will be necessary to revise the current bylaws. And part of this revision process involves the need for public consultation. It's intended that this formal public consultation will commence later this summer as part of a separate strand of work to review all current bylaws at some 200 defence sites. So the consultation in relation to bylaws, the timing of which is not determined solely by this site, it's affected by proposals across a range of defence sites, not exclusively in Scotland, most of them in fact outside Scotland.
I'm interested to hear what the Honourable Gentleman is saying. I think the reason why there is much concern is that some of the information that came from Kinetic, which ended up in the public domain, talks about a much larger exclusion zone than you're expressing in your statement today. And the map, which I'm sure the Honourable Gentleman has seen, indicates a potential doubling of the area. So, I would like to hear some clarification that what was talked about in the information that was in the public domain is therefore not correct. And I think the earlier we can have a consultation on that and what it means for the fishing community is something that would be most welcome both by myself and by my constituents.
My understanding is that Kinetic enjoys a close and cooperative relationship with local fishermen and their representatives, and while they may not at this point have engaged in a direct consultation in relation to the impact on fishing, it is absolutely our intent to do so, and I'll come on to that in a moment. I can't comment on what material may have appeared in the public domain by sources outside the Ministry of Defence, but I hope I've given some reassurance already that the extension of area that we're talking about is relatively modest and certainly not at the kind of dramatic level that the Honourable Gentleman seems to think is likely to be the case. The Ministry of Defence has a presumption in favour of public access wherever this is compatible with operational and military training uses, public safety, security, conservation and the interests of MOD tenants. It is therefore important that the views of local communities are taken into account when we propose any changes to occupation or use of shared space. To assist with the Butec public consultation, we will place notices in the local press, the draft bylaws will be made available on the Ministry of Defence website, and copies will also be available in local libraries and other municipal buildings, providing the opportunity for anyone wishing to express their views to be able to do so. I would point out gently to the honourable members opposite that members of the Scottish Parliament were notified by me in writing in February of this year that this exercise would be undertaken in the summer. There was no suggestion in my correspondence with the local authority, the then existing members of Parliament or members of the Scottish Parliament, that there would be a consultation beginning any time before the summer, and I'm not aware that there was any suggestion that there would be a consultation starting in April coming out of the MOD, so I'm not sure where the Honourable Gentleman's got that suggestion from. I'd further like to make it clear to the honourable members opposite that all the views expressed by those taking part will be considered fully as part of the decision-making process, which will also require appropriate ministerial approval, ultimately by me. and that will include consultation with fishermen. So, again, the suggestion that this has all been agreed in advance is not the case. Proposals have been made by Kinetic, they will be consulted upon, we will consider the responses to that consultation, and then we will make a decision.
Thanks to the honourable gentleman for giving way. I mean, if that is the case, why is it that construction activity seems to have started?
I'll come on to that in a moment. I recognise that the people who are most likely to be affected by the Butec plans will be those whose livelihoods depend on fishing the waters of the Inner Sound, which is the concern particularly expressed in this debate. And naturally they have legitimate concerns about how our plans will be implemented and how this might affect them in the long term. And so we completely recognise that it would be wrong simply to ignore their views. And for that reason, and in parallel to the bylaw consultation, I want to ensure that full and proper discussions are held with representatives of the local fishing communities, which we will start shortly in advance of the bylaw consultation. The aim of these talks will be to investigate what options might be available that would allow some fishing to take place at certain times within the revised water space, much as happens at present in part of the area which is other than that which is completely prohibited, which they are well accustomed to. Of course, this work will have to be balanced with the Ministry of Defence's need to protect its investments and to ensure the continued operation of this vital defence capability. As I mentioned, I wrote to the Honourable Member's predecessor, the well-respected and late lamented Charles Kennedy, and met him shortly before the general election to explain what was envisaged, the process of consultation, and that no final decisions had been taken, contrary to local press reports. I also wrote to members of the Scottish Parliament and local authority leaders, and I look forward to developing a similarly constructive relationship with the Honourable Member for Ross, Skye and Lochaber. There is work to be done, to be completed before any final decisions are made, which on current plans is expected around the end of the year. And full implementation of the changes is due to be completed during 2017. In relation to the construction that has started already, there is most of this investment is going to be in looking at the facilities under the sensors under the water. There is a modest amount of investment in the existing facilities to upgrade some of the physical capacity onshore, and where that does not require planning consent, that work can continue in any event and is already starting. This is part of this £22 million investment. The elements that require consultation and respect of local planning regulations, if any, is necessary, and indeed consultation with statutory consultees like Marine Scotland. Of course, that work can't be done until that process has been completed, but initial preparatory work can be undertaken. There's nothing to I think, alarm the honourable members as this is prejudging that consultation. Much of this work needs to be done as routinely as part of a 25-year contract. You wouldn't expect there to be no improvements during the course of a contract as long as that. I'd just like to try and allay some of the fears of the honourable gentleman who represented a sort of I can't even say the word, apocalyptic. Is that the word? Apocalyptic, thank you so much. Apocalyptic vision of the impact of these proposals on fishermen. I have seen nothing to suggest that that vision is remotely applicable to what we're proposing here. We are actively keen to engage with fishermen who in particular undertake creel fishing for prawn and other crustaceans in the Sound. There's an established relationship with Kinetic and a channel for communication to allow that to happen when there is no testing going on. There's no reason to suggest that that would change. There may be specific elements of the Sound where we will be looking to extend the prohibition, but these are relatively modest in order and certainly not of anything like the scale that the Honourable Gentleman was suggesting, which might lead to the sort of devastation of the industry that he referred to.
I look forward to the consultation exercise, and I will be satisfied as what the Honourable Gentleman lays out turns out to be the case. But I think hopefully you can understand why there are legitimate concerns. When you see the information which came from Kinetic into the public domain that paints a very different picture to the one which is being put forward today, of a much larger expansion to the area. And I think in the light of that, one can understand why people in my communities are concerned when they see the construction activity starting. And I would suggest, if this is in any way related to the expansion plans, it would have been more respectful to the local community if that didn't happen until after the consultation exercise had taken place.
Well, all I would say to the Honourable Gentleman is I think it behoves him to act responsibly as a Member of Parliament, not to foment his constituents into getting overexcited about something until he's well informed about the situation. My sense is that it doesn't help communities, having been a Member of Parliament for 10 years, and we all have to deal with contentious issues in our constituencies. It's always better to adopt an informed position before reaching for the panic button, and hence I think this debate, I hope, has been helpful to the Honourable Gentleman in achieving some reassurance as to how we're proposing to conduct ourselves, the extent of the consultation we're looking forward to undertake, and to make sure that we take into account the views of his constituents, legitimate views of his constituents who might be affected inadvertently. I'd just like to specifically address some of the questions. He asked who will be responsible for the consultation. The bylaw consultation will be undertaken by the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, the DIO bylaw review team. The consultation with the fishermen will be undertaken primarily by Kinetic, because they who have the direct relationship with them. The issue over planning, I think I have already addressed. He asked about whether the depth of the water would have an impact of what we're proposing here, and the answer to that is no. We're proposing the extension of the range would be in similar deep water to the existing range, rather than into more shallow water. He asked if we have any expectation of an adverse impact on the fishing community. As I've already addressed that, I think the answer is we don't think so, but we're keen to explore with them whether there are any concerns. And I think just to address the question of the Honourable Member for Argyll and Bute, I don't think there is a question of undue secrecy by the MOD here. We've been very clear, as I've said, with some of his colleagues in the Scottish Parliament about what we're seeking to undertake. We will do a consultation. What we will maintain secrecy over is the precise nature of some of the equipment and the capability that it delivers, because that has a clear defence purpose, and I don't think he would expect us to be as transparent about that. I think it's also not, if I may, I'll just try and address the other questions. He's raised in a traditional way his concerns as to whether this might have some underhand way of encouraging Trident renewal. And I think that is, again, not a relevant concern here. This is about providing capability which is used for a wide variety of submarine testing, including, indeed, the strategic deterrent, but by no means exclusively in relation to the strategic deterrent.
Thank you, Minister, for giving way. So, can I be absolutely clear that the extension of the range has absolutely nothing to do with the proposed Trident renewal? But personally, I find it difficult to comprehend that such an investment would be made in an underwater test facility, a submarine underwater test facility, when the government is very much and very clearly on record as supporting Trident renewal. And isn't this, as I said, simply just under-the-line spending, of which we have seen billions being spent preparing for Trident renewal before this House has had a chance to debate?
As I tried to make clear at the outset of my response to this debate, this is about improving the efficiency of the facilities that we have in existence at the moment in the Inner Sound. So we are, in essence, taking two separate locations under the water and combining them into one. The functionality of what happens under the water is being improved because of technological advance, but it's to do with the existing facilities that are already there and seeking to upgrade them to make them fit for purpose for the future. This has no direct relationship, no specific relationship to the strategic deterrent. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think I've sought to address all of the points that have been raised by those speaking on the opposite side of the House, and I hope that the House will understand the reasons why the changes I've outlined for the Butec water space are required. And put simply, they are key to sustaining the continuing operation of this vital facility, which happens to be one of the largest employers of that part of the Honourable Gentleman's constituency, and I hope he will come to recognise that this is something that he should support.
Order. The question is that this House do now adjourn. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. The ayes have it.